Hello, and welcome to the SAP Education Webinar Series. Today's session in our webinar series is on unlocking the secrets of SAP S/4HANA learning for your project team. My name is Kristen Gaw, and I'm going to go over some brief housekeeping. We will be addressing your questions at the end of the webinar, but you are encouraged to submit questions as you think of them using the Q&A panel that's on the left-hand side of your console. If you experience any technical issues, please let me know via the same Q&A panel, and I will help you out shortly. Today's session is being recorded, and we will be sending out a link of the replay in the coming days, so keep an eye out for it in your email. And with that, we're ready to dive in. Today's session is led by Steve LeGros, the North America Learning Hub lead. Steve was formerly an SAP instructor, and nowadays he helps customers understand how they can make strategic use of SAP Learning Hub, which is our cloud-based learning platform, to upskill their employees, sustain learning, and make the most of their learning budget. Steve, I'll turn it over to you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Kristen Gaw. Hi, everybody. Thank you for attending today's call. And yes, I want to talk to you today, really focus in on your S/4HANA projects, whether we are talking about upgrade projects from existing SAP earlier ERP-type solutions, or you are new to SAP. We have the education that's going to really be focused in on that project team to make sure that those folks have what they need to get the most out of the project. A couple of statistics here. When you're considering the move to S/4HANA, we tend to categorize this as a digital transformation. A lot of people who were surveyed have expressed the concern around end user training and the need to upskill your end users, but that assumes that you have a solution that is going to meet the needs of your business. And so if we think about the entire transformation journey, the first step along that journey is really going to be bringing up your project team. Now, S/4HANA projects tend to be very fast projects in comparison to older ERP implementations, tend to get done in months instead of years, or weeks instead of months. And so the need to understand what the solution can do for you and where you're going to be able to leverage this new technology to have the business change and the business impact that you want, you're going to need to address your learning needs in an entirely different way. The old model of going to classes, several weeks of classes over the duration of a project that might take 18 months is probably not really a viable option for you anymore. And so what we want to do is we want to address the fact that this learning curve has to change. You're learning a new system. You're learning how to implement a new system. You're working with your implementation partner to make key decisions on a very fixed timeline to get a solution up and running with the functionality that you want to recover the cost associated with that project and ultimately drive new value into your business. The decisions you're making have a material impact on the return on that investment and the future state of your business. But you need to make those decisions in an entirely different timeline. So we need a way to learn faster. Get your hands and your brains on the information that you need to make those key decisions. You need to learn more. There's more functionality. There's more options in S4 systems than there have been before because we're touching more parts of the business and giving you more options. Yes, we have solutions like drawing a blank on what it's called, model company, where we can kind of predetermine and preset you up with a set of configuration, but you're still going to want to look at that and determine if that's the best course of action for you and your business in your industry. You're going to need to learn everywhere. No longer can you rely on the calendar and go and take a class when and where you want to. You're going to need to be able to do research at 9 o'clock at night on a Thursday because you've got this project deadline coming on Friday. And so this ability to get in and learn everywhere, not just in a classroom, but wherever you happen to be, whether you're traveling, you're at home, or you're at work. You're going to learn continuously because the cycle of innovation coming from SAP is ever increasing. It used to be that new innovations, new releases of SAP came out every couple of years. Now, about every 6 months, we are releasing new functionality to you, and you're going to want to know what that new functionality is, what the new options are, and how you can leverage those to, again, drive value into your business. And you don't learn in a vacuum. We're going to need to learn together, not only learning from the experts at SAP, but learning from people in your industry and learning from people inside your organization so that you can collaborate and think through how you are going to actually implement these solutions. So there's all this change, and we need to be able to address it in a much more flexible way than we ever did before. Yes, the classroom is still going to be important to us. It's an important and key aspect to the way that people learn because it's very familiar, but we're talking about your project team and these very limited timelines to make the decisions that you need to make to get this value out of your solutions. So you're going to need to prepare in the first couple of phases of the project. You're going to need to prepare your functional teams, your super users, your key users, your implementation team, your technical teams, all the folks that really have a handle on what the solution is going to do for you so that as you're going through the project, you can make those decisions. Now, as you come out of that phase and you start to move into further phases that get you into exploring the solutions and realizing it and deploying it for your end users, there's going to be a different need and a different target audience for learning. We'll talk a little bit about that later on. But here I want you to make sure we are all focused on that key target audience, which is our project teams, those people who are working hand in hand with your implementation partners to make the decisions to get the additional value out of your systems, maybe make some key business process changes so that you can drive new value into your business. So, as I said, we really do recommend a blended approach to learning. And what I mean by that is that we all are aware of the traditional classroom experience, finding a class or a couple of classes that are interesting to you, signing up for them, either traveling to a location or having an instructor come to you, and you learn from that instructor in 2 days or 3 days or 5 days, but in this kind of very fixed, very familiar format. Well, we want to blend that with another way to learn, a more continuous, on-demand way of learning to give us the greatest amount of flexibility. I'll tell you the same number of decisions or maybe more decisions need to be made in an S4 implementation that needed to be made before, but we're making them faster, and you're still going to need that knowledge. So how do we cram more knowledge, more information into a shorter actual time frame? And the only way to do that is to be more flexible in the way that we address that learning. So what are our blended learning options? So there's 3 different ways that you can get what I would consider traditional classroom training. You can come to us. We have a whole portfolio of classes that are on a calendar, and you can sign up for that public classroom. Lots of value, usually in a training location. It's that real experience of sitting down with an instructor and getting that subject matter expertise given to you in that very familiar format. Now, we can also do that same thing, but we can do it on site. So you'd be in that classroom, not just with whoever from other industries and other businesses were in there with you, but we can send an instructor to you. This is a great option when there's a project team you're focused in, there's 6 of you, there's 10 of you who are focused in on finance, let's say, and you want to bring an instructor so that they're all getting the same information at the same time. And we can work this into your project timelines. But again, then coming out of that project, each of those 10 people is going to split off and do a separate thing inside that finance world. So how do we take that core knowledge that they're getting in the classroom and extend it out? We'll talk about that in a second. The other option is this. There's our traditional classroom experience that you can get and come to us, but we also do that same exact thing virtually. So an instructor on a very fixed timeline, 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, but it's all virtual. So no actual travel. You're sitting in front of your computer for several hours a day. You're learning from that same subject matter expert. You're experiencing the same thing. You're experiencing the demos, the lectures. You're getting chances to do exercises, all those things, only you're just not physically traveling for it. You can still have conversations with your instructor or your fellow students. All that stuff happens. It's just all happening virtually. So we take our public classroom offering and offer it in a virtual environment. All of that is on a timeline and single calendar event driven. You specify the specific 2 days or 3 days or 5 days that you're going to go take a class, or we're going to send an instructor to you and you're going to take that class. But that doesn't give you the great flexibility that the Learning Hub is going to give you to actually supplement those classes. So what's the trick? What's the key, the secret to actually unlocking all this knowledge is to look at our offerings and see how you want to actually blend these things together. So let's talk about how that blended approach is really, really going to work, and I'm going to use an S4 example with it. So this is our kind of life cycle, if you will, of how an individual learner on you or your team is going to learn new functionality for S4. And we're going to use the Learning Hub and other tools in the education bag to learn about that new functionality. Now, we're going to start by taking a look at learning journeys. Now, learning journeys actually live outside the Learning Hub. So we'll take a look at where we can see these curriculum maps or these learning journeys to understand all of the options that are available to us when it comes to learning. If you have both budget for classroom classes as well as a Learning Hub subscription, then we can get into this blended approach to learning, which is going to include accessing that content in a mixture of the Learning Hub and the actual classroom. And so when we do have a Learning Hub subscription, what are the things we can do? Well, we can access a learning room, which is where we have that 24/7 access to a subject matter expert, not just during the actual classroom time. We're going to go through the map of learning, being guided through that map of learning from the learning room itself and that subject matter expert. We're going to be able to ask questions asynchronously. And then as we go through that map, and this isn't even on this cycle here, but as we're going through that map, we don't want to only do things in the Learning Hub because there's so much value in the actual classroom experience. Maybe it's at this point, once we've experienced some things in the Learning Hub and prepared ourselves for a classroom class, then we actually go take a class, right? Then we leave the Learning Hub and we have that actual classroom experience. Then we come back into the Learning Hub and we extend that knowledge. We do some exercises in a system that wasn't available just during that week. Maybe we go into the library and extend out that knowledge by doing additional research, or we continue down our learning map, our learning journey that we already identified. So this is how an individual is going to do it. So let me take you through how all this would work, and I'm going to share my screen. And share here. All right, good. So let's take a look. Let me close that. And we're going to first take a look at what we call learning journeys. Now, learning journeys are available out at training.sap.com/learning. And when you come into that learning journey area, this is the screen you're going to be greeted with. It's actually a new UI, so if you've been out there before, this is a new way for us to display our learning journeys to you. It's actually kind of clever and neat. But there's 178 learning journeys available to you, again, across all areas of SAP, whether they're S4 or they're technology, whether they're Ariba, whether they're on-prem or cloud. There's all sorts of different learning journeys out here for you. So let me just get to the learning journeys that are S4HANA specific. So I will filter on that. Notice there's only 79 of those, and then I can kind of dive in a little bit further. I can, search on a keyword. So if I was going to do asset management as an example, here we have S4HANA asset management, and I can take a look at the learning journey associated with asset management. and see what it has in store for me. So the first thing is we're going to, there's an overview, a class, S4H00. And when I look at this, you'll see that because we access this learning journey, just not through the Learning Hub itself, but just from that training.sap.com/learning website, you'll see that all of the options for learning that topic are laid out here. There's an e-book that's available in the Learning Hub. There's an e-learning that's available in the Learning Hub. But there's also a 3-day class. And this is the key. This is the secret, to look at that whole learning journey to get you all of the knowledge that you or your team might need in asset management, and it includes this 3-day class, and it includes this 5-day class, and it includes this 3-day class, and it includes this class that's coming in I don't know, I guess in Q3 or Q4 of this year, and this class that's coming in Q3 or Q4 this year. And it's all of those things, right? But you're going to look at that and say, okay, what do I think? What of those classes, of those 15 or 20 days of classes, do I really have time in my project plan to go and actually sit down for 5 days and take this class? And maybe you decide that this managing technical objects, this 3-day class is really the important one. That's the one that I need to make sure that I take or my team takes or whatever. Well, this business processes and asset management was a prereq, and this S4HANA overview was a prereq. So how do I get that knowledge without going to those classes? And that's where the Learning Hub comes in. So we do our prerequisite knowledge, the stuff that we want to get out of the way so we can get to the real heart of the things that we really need. We want to do that in the Learning Hub. And so the Learning Hub subscription, they come over here. This is my Learning Hub. Learning Hub subscription, you're going to access it via URL, username and password. Come in here, nice soft landing page. Again, we can get to our learning journey straight from here. But the first step inside of the Learning Hub, the thing that has real knowledge and real content inside of it, is our learning rooms. And we've got about 75 different learning rooms, all of which are moderated by SAP subject matter experts, people who understand SAP solutions, but more importantly, understand how to teach SAP solutions. So they understand what you, the learner, what you need to get you from the knowledge that you have to the knowledge that you need for implementing S4, to implement any of SAP solutions, but in this particular case we're talking about S4. And I can sign up, anybody can sign up for any learning room. There's no cost associated with it. So let's just take a look at this S4HANA Overview Learning Room. This is probably a great place for everybody who's attending this webinar to start. If you're interested in unlocking S4 and the value of S4, you're going to want to get a Learning Hub subscription, and you're going to want to sign up for this learning room. And in this learning room, there's a nice overview of what is S4HANA. There is a number of different roadmaps for what's going on with S4HANA on-prem and cloud. There's a number of webinars that you can sign up for. There was one on October 10th. There's one that's coming up on November 7th. There's another one that's coming up on December 13th. And you can attend these live. These are like hour-long webinars. They're not 3 days long or 5 days long, but they're about particular topics. And of course, as you go through this content or any of the content that was laid out here in the learning journey, you're going to want to be able to ask questions. And this is where the value of the learning room really takes hold. You're not just trying to learn from an e-learning or read an e-book and understand what you need to know. Of course, that's going to form the basis for your questions, but you need to be able to ask questions to round out your knowledge, to verify what you're reading and understanding. So all of our learning rooms have a Q&A or an Ask Questions tab where you can come out and post a question that anyone in this learning room, any one of the thousands of members of this learning room can actually see, but more importantly that any one of these moderators, and there's 4 moderators of this learning room, Margit, Mark Green, Nadine, and Stephanos, who cover different core areas of S4 where they can answer your question about where to get more information. This isn't free consulting. This is a place where you, as you're trying to understand S4 and how it's going to bring value to you, where you can post a question and they can point you to the knowledge. That's covered in this class, or that's covered in this e-learning, or they can bring in a subject matter expert for product management. But this is a place where you can start to post your questions so that you can understand what you need to know to make those decisions during your project. So fantastic place. And as I said, there's tons of these learning rooms out there across all different areas of SAP. So again, if let's say I was interested in finance specifically, again, this is a learning room that's not just around S4, it's around S4 finance or even ERP finance. Here's Stefanos again. He's a subject matter expert. Again, he's an instructor. He understands how to teach you this. He's laid out the learning journeys. Here's my Q&A tab. Like I mentioned, all of our learning rooms have these Q&A tabs. There's 5,981 members of this learning room, so all these people can come out here and ask questions, and Stefanos, or in this case, Bernhard, can answer those questions. There are, again, those special events, those webinars, those upcoming live webinars, and he's even recorded, Stefanos and Bernhard have recorded some additional videos. So again, all this information, but it's all asynchronous, right? So you take this and you get your baseline knowledge about S4 or about S4 finance, and then you take that and you walk into a 3-day or a 5-day class, and you're really much better prepared for that 3-day or 5-day class. So the questions you're asking aren't holding yourself or anybody else back. You're actually getting into the meat of the knowledge that you need to go back and do whatever your tasks are to make those decisions during your project. But that forms the core. How do I then extend that and go beyond that? Because all of our learning journeys, just to bring this up again, let's assume that you did this class. Well, then you're going to want to get into preventive maintenance and asset management, maybe even eventually get into the later versions of S4HANA, or expand your skill sets into asset intelligence or predictive maintenance or whatever it happens to be. So you can take this and extend it, and you don't have to go again back to the class unless there's a topic that is so important to you that you think that I really need that class. I want to go learn from that subject matter expert. But you can extend that core knowledge back out here and prepare for certification if you want to out here in the Learning Hub. Now, as I said, we're going to take all this. Let me go ahead and stop sharing, and I'm going to go back to the slides. So we're going to take all this. We're going to be able to ask questions of our subject matter experts in the learning rooms. We can do what we call live access, which is systems. We can get systems when we're not in the classroom. We can bring those up through the Learning Hub itself. And then there's a huge library, 4,000 plus titles of e-learnings and e-books out there in the Learning Hub that you don't have to go through the learning journeys to access. You can just go out to the library and do some further research. But we don't want to leave you out there on your own to search through the Learning Hub. So what we can do is we can actually interact with you and your organization and your team. So what we can do is we can work out a good hybrid approach with you. We have people, your education reps, as well as these people called CEEs, which are customer engagement executives, who are going to help you adopt the Learning Hub and really get the most value out of your education experience. So where in this learning journey should we be taking classes? What's the good hybrid approach? Well, they'll help onboard you and your team with your Learning Hub subscriptions, because the best practice here is to have a Learning Hub subscription and to be signed up for some classes. So you're going to want to do prereq work in the Learning Hub. So let's onboard you into the Learning Hub before your classes so you can do that prereq work. Then go take the class. Then coming out of the class, where do I go next? What's the next thing I need to learn? Where can I find that in the Learning Hub? And the CEEs and your education reps are going to be there to help you with that. If you need any help with Learning Hub adoption itself, reports being run, who's accessing the Learning Hub, are we getting value out of the Learning Hub itself? Then the CEEs are there to help you with that. And then as the next phase of your project or the next thing that you want to adopt from SAP comes along, that continuous evaluation of your team needs. What's next? What's our next hybrid approach? What's the next thing that we want to learn? They're there to actually bring you along and bring up that next group of learners in the Learning Hub itself. As far as all this goes, what we really were focused in on is an S4 project in that green phase, preparing your project team, functional teams, super users, key users, technical teams, whatever, during the early phases of your project. Coming out of that, you're going to be building a solution that people are going to need to know how to use. We have other weapons in our arsenal that are going to help you. We can help you with organizational change management. That's the orange phase. We can help you with end user training. That's the purple phase. This is not Learning Hub. These are solutions that come from SAP Education. Organizational change management, SAP Enable Now for your end user training, measuring and optimizing performance and the services that go along with that, with user experience management by NOAA. So again, it's all about getting that ROI out of your SAP solutions by first getting you the knowledge that you need to implement the solution the way you want it implemented, and then making sure your end user and your end user population can adopt that solution through the rest of our tools. And not the focus of today's webinar, but I want you to be aware of where the Learning Hub and the classroom really fit in this overall learning strategy, this continuous learning strategy that's going to get you the most value out of your solutions. If you wanted to know about the value of this, we're really talking about the build phase. For the dollars that you spend on training your project team, customers who have well-trained project teams, where they consider themselves that the project team itself understood what they needed to know how to do during the project itself, usually save themselves, on average, 10% of project time. It usually amounts to about a month, right? So if you've got a 10-month project plan, you want it done in 10 months, you got to enable your project team to have the knowledge that they need to make those decisions in a timely manner. Otherwise, it's going to extend out. And then start to ask yourself this question: what does an extra month or an extra 10% of project time mean? What's the impact? What's the impact on the business? What's the impact on the cost associated with that in terms of consulting and time away and all those sorts of things? What are the risks associated with leaving my old system up for an additional month? And so that's where that value of the cost associated with project team training, classroom plus Learning Hub, where that's really going to come into play. But we really want to make sure that you get that value. Well, that's really the last thing I wanted to talk to you about. I knew we only have a half hour. We've got about 3 minutes left for questions. Kristen Gall, have any questions come into the Q&A pod?
Hey, Steve. Great presentation. And yes, we do have a couple of questions. And audience, just as a reminder, you can submit a question for Steve via the Q&A chat panel on the left-hand side of your console. And we can ask Steve while we've got him here on the line. So Steve, a couple questions have come in while you were sharing with us about the Learning Hub. One is the Learning Hub only for project team members?
That's a great question. Thanks for it. It's focused primarily on project team members, but I want you to think of not just your core project team, but your extended project team. The people who are doing the work, the people who are sitting side by side with your implementation partner, are the people that we think of as the project team. But they're relying on other people in the business, super users, power users, influence council, to help them make decisions and to be able to roll those decisions back out. And so anybody that has direct or even indirect contact with that project who needs to understand what the options are so that you can make good decisions is a candidate for a Learning Hub subscription. And with the costs of the Learning Hub, if you just access it one time or 2 times in a year, you're really going to get value out of it because you're going to be able to make those decisions, and the cost of getting that knowledge in other ways it's the most cost-effective and calendar-efficient way of getting that information.
Great, thank you. Yes, one other question. How do I go about getting a Learning Hub subscription? And how about multiple subscriptions for me and my team?
So if you're looking at 1 or 2 subscriptions of the Learning Hub, probably the easiest way is to go through the SAP web shop, which is also that training.sap.com website. You also go to shop.sap.com if you wanted to get 1 or 2 licenses. But if you're looking at anything over 5 licenses for your project, you can reach out to me, or you can reach out to your SAP that member team, so your account executives, they'll put you in touch with your education account representative. That person will walk you through the process. There's a number of different ways that we can go about getting you licenses. Cost is less than, for a year subscription of the Learning Hub, the cost is going to be less than 5 days of class. So the recommendation, the best practice is to allocate enough funds for 5 days of class plus a Learning Hub subscription. That's going to get you your blended approach. It's going to give you the options for your blended approach to learning. But yeah, you're going to have to go through your education rep. I wouldn't recommend for your team trying to do that on the individual level. I'd recommend, because you're going to get some volume discounts and things like that if you go through your education rep.
Great tips. Thank you. Well, audience, thank you again for joining us today, and a big thanks to Steve, our presenter. We thank you for your time and participation. This does conclude our webinar, but just as a reminder, today's session was recorded, and we will be sending out a link to the replay in the coming days. And we do have a couple of other upcoming webinars we hope to see you at. The next one we're hosting in a couple weeks' time will be around fine-tuning organizational change management for SAP S/4HANA. So if you'd like to register for any of our upcoming webinars, we will send a link to those along with the replay of this webinar in the coming days. So thanks again, everyone, and have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.